Good morning, everyone. We are going to take a look at acceptable graphing techniques this morning. Graphing is something we are going to use on a very regular basis this year in this class. Accurately graphing your data is something we need to be able to do. So, first of all, we're going to take a look at the graph itself. You have two axes on your graph, which are very similar to the coordinate plane that you use in math. And the axes are the same. So on the left-hand side, you have the y-axis. And at the bottom, you have the x-axis. You should already know the difference between the y-axis and the x-axis. I know you did this in math last year, and we also did this in science last year. If you don't, you need to know that now. You need to memorize it. One way that helps me remember is this vertical line on a capital Y helps me to remember that it is the axis that runs up and down. So now that we know which axis is which, the next step is determining which axis our data needs to go on. So today, we're going to look at a data set that determines how many cups of coffee teachers drink within the school year. Do we increase our coffee intake or do we decrease our coffee intake? So let's say that Mrs. Hood drinks 1 cup of coffee a day in August. In September, she's up to 2 cups of coffee a day. By October, she's up to 4 cups of coffee a day. And then in November, she's at like heart attack level of cups of coffee a day. Now, Miss Parsons, on the other hand, in August, she's drinking 4 cups of coffee a day. In September, she's still drinking 4 cups of coffee a day. But by October, she's down to 2 cups of coffee a day. In November, maybe 1 cup of coffee. So we have our data set. So we need to look at our variables and determine which one is our dependent variable and which one is our independent variable. And I have a little trick for you to help you with that. It is called dry mix. So the D in dry stands for dependent variable. The R is the results of your experiment, also sometimes called the responding variable. And the Y is the y-axis. And then for mix, you have the manipulated variable, if I can spell, also known as the independent variable. This is the thing that you change on purpose in the experiment, and it goes on the x-axis. So as a hint, the independent variable is the thing that you put in your data table before you ever start your experiment. So in this case, the independent variable are the months of the school year. So we're going to add those on our x-axis. So we have August with an A, not an S. September. October and November. You must label your axes. So this is months of the school year. And then for our dependent variable, our results. This is what you write down in your data table as you're doing your experiment. Our dependent variable is the number of cups of coffee that a teacher drinks, okay? So that goes on our y-axis because according to dry mix, the dependent variable, which is the results of your experiment or the responding variable, goes on the y-axis. So now we have our table set up. We need to give we have our graph set up. We need to give our graph a title. The title is, how much coffee do teachers drink each month in a school year? By reading the title, we know exactly what information we can gather from this data table. In order to get full credit for your graphs in this class, your graph must have a title. You must have the axes labeled with the units of measurement. So over here, the unit of measurement is cups. We are measuring the number of cups of coffee. Down here, the unit of measurement is months. It is months in the school year. Make sure you include your unit of measurement or you will not get credit. Then you need to make sure that your dependent variable is on the y-axis and your independent variable is on the x-axis. If you forget what those are, you have that information in your notebook and you have several examples in video form and in written form that you have done already in class to help you determine which is the dependent and independent variable in an experiment. Our next step is setting the range. So we are going to look at the range of our data. Now the range of our data for the x-axis is August through November. It is important to make your graph as large as possible. You want it to fill up your entire piece of paper, if at all possible. Now you got to leave space for all of your labels, but the bigger the graph, the more accurate a picture you're going to get. So actually, I should have spread these out some more to stretch it all the way across this axis. On this free version of the online whiteboard, that's difficult to do, so I'm going to leave it as is right now. So to set our y-axis range, one thing you need to remember is, in science, we always start at 0. 0 at the origin. We always start at 0. So the next thing we do is we find our highest number in our data set. For this data set, our highest number is 6. So we have to go from 0 to 6. And if you look closely, we have little dots here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines. So we want to go from 0 to 6 in 12 lines. What that means is, for this particular data set, we're going to go half numbers. So we started at 0. So this line here is 1/2 or 0.5. Then we're going to go up a line is 1, then 1.5, 2, 2.5, And you guessed it, 3. And so you get the idea. We're going to go 3.5 all the way up to 6. Our next step is to actually plot our points. Now, when you're plotting multiple sets of data on the same graph, it's important that you plot one entire set of data at a time. So we're going to start with Miss Hood's data. And we're going to use blue for Miss Hood. Oh, that changed my numbers too, but that's okay. It's important that you color code your data, or you can use, if you only have one color pencil or pen, you can use dots and dashes to differentiate between your data lines. So for Miss Hood in August, we had 2 cups of coffee. In September, she had 4 cups. So that's going to be around here. In October, I messed up. In September, she had 1 cup. So I think I can go back. Yes. And back again. So in August, she had 1 cup. In September, she had 2 cups. In October, she had 4 cups. And in November, she had 6 cups. So the next step is drawing your line of best fit for this data set. This is also called a trend line, and this is the tricky part. You want to draw a line that shows the trend of your data. Now, it's easy to see that if we continued this data, it would keep going up basically at the same level. But data is never perfect, so it's not a perfect line. You are not going to connect the dots. That is not what a line of best fit is. It is a straight line, and you are going to try to put as many of the data points on your line as possible while keeping the same number above the line as you have below the line. So we have 2 points on the line with 1 point above and 1 point below. Now next we're going to plot our second set of data. So Miss Parsons had 4 cups of coffee in August. She had 4 cups of coffee in September. And then she had 2 cups of coffee in October and 1 cup of coffee in November. So again, we're going to draw our line of best fit. We can see that our line is kind of moving this way. So we're going to start right about here. It's a little trickier to get them all on the line this time. Let's try that again. I think if I start a little bit lower, I can get both of these points pretty close. And so you see we have 2 points above the line. We have 2 points below the line. We don't have any points exactly on the line, but it still follows the trend of the data. So this is your line of best fit, or your trend line. And your graph is complete. Now for your assignment, you have some questions to answer based on this data and this graph. So make sure you answer those questions. So what you need to do is redo your graph from yesterday. Now, if you did it exactly like I have demonstrated here and you are satisfied with it, you have checked your rules for acceptable graphs in your notes, and you believe that you have it exactly as it should be, then you can simply resubmit your assignment from yesterday for today's assignment. And you are done. Congratulations for getting it right the first time. If you need to make some changes or adjustments to yesterday's graph, this is your opportunity. Go ahead and make whatever changes you need to make and then upload it for today's assignment. Don't forget to answer the questions after you have finished with your graph.